Hey, welcome to Roaming Minds. I'm Carlos.
I'm AJ, and here we talk about the thoughts that kept us out of all the really good schools. You know, those quiet spirals, the questions that keep you up at night, and the trials and tribulations that we all face as human beings.
This show is part reflection, part reminder. We're not broken, we're on a journey of growth. Please note that this conversation should not be taken as medical or professional advice. See the link in the description below if you require immediate help.
Every week, we unpack what it means to choose joy. Not the loud version that Karen is peddling, but the quiet, hard-earned kind that comes from finally feeling like yourself again.
Let's keep this conversation going. Join us on Discord or connect to a peer through Kindred. Let's get into it.
What if you could copy yourself? Right? What if not cloning, because I don't, that's not what I'm talking about, but what if you could clone yourself digitally? Uh,
Still,
I feel like
still no.
yeah, but this has been very, it's been one of the driving questions or driving maybe not even just driving questions, but driving purposes for tech and innovation of like, why or how can I upload my consciousness? And AI is making that a very real possibility these days. I can upload sounds or recordings of people and train an AI on conversations, and they can become very much so like that person. Is it an exact digital consciousness? No, not necessarily, but it's pretty close. It's not. Mm. And I came across this paper that was talking about digital twins, more specifically, digital twins for mental health data. Not for mental health data, but for mental health. So sorry. Digital twin for mental health.
No.
Okay. And so I guess we'll start by looking at that idea of digital twin. So a digital twin is just a reproduction of all of it, the world around you, yourself. It doesn't, I mean, the idea of digital twin can be taken either way. It can just be the surrounding environment. It can just be you. I know companies like NVIDIA are doing a lot with digital twins right now. They're running effectively simulations on how things are going to proceed. And this can be really, really useful in terms of detecting weather patterns, what would happen in the unlikely event of X. Running these simulations and being able to see the likelihood, it gets us to allow us, it allows, there we go, it allows us to go ahead and test a lot of possibilities in a short period of time rather than going, making the mistake and learning afterwards. This can be very, digital twins are very useful, especially in terms of if you think about a logistics perspective for shipping and receiving, simulating how a change is going to interact with that system can be very, very beneficial because you can be like, maybe that's not a good thing. And then test out other different ones. And with modern computing, we can do that very, very rapidly. And so we can make the right decision in terms of what needs to happen in that moment. But what happens when that digital twin becomes of your mind? There's a lot of interesting things that I can think of almost instantaneously. There's also a lot of really scary things. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot of trust.
That's why my first when you had asked, yeah, my first reaction was good. I don't want that because it is good enough where it's not going to steer you in any, I don't want to say wrong or give any wrong information back.
So I will tell you that that is not the concern that I have at all. No, I'm nowhere,
Hmm.
strictly because you're talking about running multiple simulations so that you're making the most effective decision. And when we're talking about digital twins, we are talking about using your data. It's not programmed once thing and then that's it. It's okay, well, you're wearing a ring, or you're wearing a watch or some sort of wearable. This also can get into brain computer interfaces,
Hmm.
even just glasses that are tracking things like eye movement, and other areas along those lines. All that data is consistently being sent to your digital twin to understand what is going on with you in real time, and then to be able to go ahead and predict how you are going to behave in certain scenarios. So the accuracy is less what I'm concerned about as much as what does that mean for humanity then at that point? So I have a digital twin, and I don't actually have one. This is purely hypothetical. I have a digital
Hmm.
twin. I'm thinking about this career choice, whatever that career choice is. Let's say it is, I don't know. Let's take truck driving. Let's take one of the most popular jobs in America. It knows that I have ADHD. It knows that I am prone to stress, whatever, and all these other things. And it runs through X amount of simulations, and it says, well, by the end of this, I have determined that in no way, shape, or form would you be suitable for a career in truck driving. Oh, okay. Maybe not suitable. That's not right. It's not that I can't do the job, but it's that my mental well being would suffer to such an extent that it would not be worth my while to go ahead and pursue this. Okay. That's a neat
Hmm.
concept. On the flip side, then you have, okay, well, what if I say I want to go into a job in I want to go get a PhD in research. And they're like, okay, well, maybe this would be more suited, but you have to look out for potential pitfalls here, here, and here. And that's one thing. But then as
Hmm.
I'm going through that, based off of indicator X, indicator Y, and indicator Z, chances are you're going to be highly stressed out over the next couple of days. Let's make this predictive analytic, and you can go ahead and start incorporating this into your daily routine so that it will decrease your stress in 3-4 weeks, something like that. And you'll avoid this potential burnout because you're going to be all right. That is really actually very impressive and very neat. And so, where I'm going to make the claim of issue is, where is it that we experience life then at that point?
That was going to be my now that you've explained it, that was going to be my question, because I'm like, well, yes, it's nice and all to make these predictive, again, these are predictive analytics, because just something is predictive doesn't necessarily mean it's going to come true. So if people then use these to either skirt certain occupation or certain activities, thinking that the predictive pattern that was outputted is going to come true, then you never experience life. You, as basically in a weird way, become a programmed machine, because it tells you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and that's it.
Yes, exactly. And we can actually have that level of insight over your cognitive state and mental well-being. There's so many dangerous implications for that it's like, I just because we can, should we?
That's the thing is, I'm like, what if whoever's programming this has certain, let's say, hatred to a certain group? They can be like, well, you should be doing this, and doing this. And all of a sudden, we are having a very weird society all of a sudden.
Right. And I was only thinking about it from like a consumerism perspective. So I appreciate the idea of race that you bring in, because God fucking forbid there was any other situation that is similar to World War II and or the events preceding World War II in any way, shape, or form. You can effectively control an entire group of people to make them do whatever in the flip that you want. And to an extent, it's already here. The technologies are there currently to be able to they've been there. We know how to manipulate the mind. We
Well, yeah,
know how
we
to
know
influence. Right.
exactly.
And so I've done a lot of thinking about this past week. The books that I'm reading are very they are pretty much focused around Eastern philosophies and how we rectify that in the West. And the first thing that came into my mind was like, well, what room does that leave for serendipity? Oh, snap. I was walking down the street to go do some sort of thing. I met this person, and one of the greatest things in my life happened. I, it's gone now because I know for a fact that this is not going to then go and lead us forward. So I'm not going to go ahead and take that action. And so what I think is this really does highlight then is a potential solution. I I say that with all weariness because it's not solutions are probably not the right word. But at least insight into current mental health problems and statistics. So we've seen increases in depression, we've seen increases in anxiety, we've seen increases in mental health disorders at large.
Agreed.
One of the things that this idea brings up is self-obsession. I don't know about you, but every time I wear that fucking watch, I'm like, did I hit my rings today? Did I do this? What's my heart rate at? And I'm monitoring everything. And I'm not saying that it's not good to do that. Especially, there have been some health concerns over the past couple of weeks. I've had to monitor some aspects of my health in order to gain an insight and to understand and be able to go to the doctor and be like, hey man, like what's the best way to proceed from here? And so
Hmm.
there has to be some level of monitoring that is engaged. However, when it comes to such an alarming extreme, all that's going to do is increase my anxiety and make me fucking go absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
And I do find it very, very interesting, at least what I've been reading a lot of, is this idea of getting away from knowing tangibly absolutely everything and getting more into, okay, well what possibilities are there? And I think this ties in a little bit with what we talked about first season in terms of hope and in terms of purpose and in terms of things like that, because that idea of what's possible is what drives our hope. It's what drives our purpose. People that have done incredible things in this lifetime, they had some sort of, and for the most part, I feel like we can all agree that there are some things that people have done that are incredible. I don't know that I would meet anybody and sit down and have a conversation with them and be like, what Usain Bolt did for running and how fast this man was able to move is anything short of an impressive feat. You may not be like, oh, well, that's what I want to do. That's not what I'm talking about, right? He determined something that he wanted to go after. He went after it, and he did what he had to do in order to get there. Hope, purpose, what are those driving factors? And if we take away all of that, what happens? How is it? I guess this is the question that comes up in my mind, is how is it that we go ahead and design these technological experiences without increasing the likelihood that people are going to develop new, I don't want to say disorders because I don't think that's right, new issues arising. I think I think we have enough information at this current moment in time to be able to say, okay, if we do this, something like this is going to happen. Effectively what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, correct? We said, hey,
Yes.
digital twins for mental health, maybe not such a good idea, because no company should ever have that much control over that amount of your data. And at that point, data privacy and those practices become very, very, very important. Not just, oh, you got my social media data. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about data on another level that literally can be used to influence exactly how you should think and operate. So then, how can we use these principles that we know that work for mental wellness and for mental health to make sure that these are used in the best of ways? Because again, especially for things like medications and psychiatry, there's a lot of promise there. If I have you hooked up to an EEG or an EMG and can really understand what's happening, and if brain technology or BCIs get more advanced than they are, I can get a pretty accurate description of exactly what's going on in your brain. And so for psychiatry, there's a lot of promise in terms of taking that data and understanding what's going on. But, how it's such a fine line, man. Like, it is such a fine line. It is seriously concerning. And so, to me, like, this is like that idea of the Concorde jet. Just because we can doesn't mean that we should, because that jet literally holes in the ozone. Like, not a good thing. Digital twins for mental health, probably. If used in very, very confined settings. So I think when it comes to treating psychiatric patients, I think that there's a lot of kind of promise there. I think back to reading Oliver Sacks, and if they had something like that for a lot of the patients that he was working with, they would understand that on a deeper level, and the trial and error of figuring out which meds were going to work is going to go much, much more quickly. And maybe if the data is in no way, shape, or form tied to you, this could work out in theory. But how do we not tie the data to you? There's digital aspects of everything. Just your IP address alone, if you're on some sort of internet connected device, which you have to be, is going to get uploaded to some extent. So there's always going to be some way of identifying you to your mental health data. And there's just so much that can go wrong so quickly. But it did come up, and this is something that researchers are actively pursuing. I read a paper this morning that talked about advocating for this kind of mental health digital twin.
Th- That's, I was gonna ask, let's see, let's assume, because when you were talking, I was like, I think the place that it could be used is research for scientific research purposes. But after it's used for those scientific research purposes, and let's say it's proven to be effective, should it then be implemented? Because nothing, not like nothing that science has done is 100% something. There's always going to be pitfall. So should it sit? Let's say the pitfall is like, let's say it's 90% effective, and there is a 10% chance that it's that it will have the ramification that we're talking about. Should it still be used? At what point we decide that the benefits outweigh the cost, or the cost outweigh the benefits?
Yes, and I think it's a solid question to ask. And so here's the best response I think that I can give on that. Even if we allow it for research purposes. Okay, so some researchers are building digital twins of people who have given consent and whatever. What is stopping somebody from coming in, building some device that makes our lives infinitely better? If you want to get technical, like at least it makes our lives easier by some order of magnitude that we find desirable. What's stopping them from mass marketing, selling it, and then using those data practices? And
Technically nothing.
that's I shouldn't using those data practices, using unethical data practices, because we know it's out there. We know that somebody's going to want to do it. It's not uncommon, and it's not outside the realm of what could happen. And so that's why I say I don't. Mm, we are so scared of AI taking over, and people are like, well, I can't tell you how many people this week alone that I talked to that were like, I don't use AI. I still take handwritten notes. And I'm like, well, that's crazy, because I would never. I understand the utility of handwritten notes, but the just of being, because you're being wary. No way.
Well, see, I still take handwritten notes, not because I'm weary of AI. I use AI in other parts. It's just because that's, again, I'm speaking from it. That just what works for me in terms of studying. Handwriting something just commits it to my long-term memory better than having AI do flashcards and then me repeating it. That necessarily doesn't work. I'm just am like that. Again, that person, it's a different story.
So I'll tell you, I used to be that same way. And when I was when I was in grad school, I'll never forget this. I met with my thesis advisor, and he looks at me and goes, "Are you writing this down by hand?" And I was like, "Yeah, it just helps." And he goes, "Let me introduce you to something." And that's like my first introduction to Rome. And I have never taken handwritten notes since then, because it it's so easily recalled. I've typed it out, and then I can go back. And something about that, I know that I can go back easily and find whatever I want, kind of helps me to commit everything to memory. But I digress. That's, some useless story that doesn't matter. There are just so many issues with this because we have so much data that we produce on a day-to-day basis. We've got sleep data, we've got heart rate data, we've got voice data, we would have mood data, we would have app usage data, we would uh, all of it.
General footprint
How
that you've touched, gone through, things you've looked at for 10 to 30 hours. We have that data on most everybody.
Mhm. And when we start combining that with when we start combining that all together, number one, it really is concerning. And then it kind of brings up this. Maybe it won't be. I don't, man, maybe it won't be. Maybe this will end up happening. And maybe our initial concerns are unwarranted. I think about,
Well, sorry to stop you, but I don't think they're unwarranted. I think they're going to be dismissed or be packaged as something new that is going to be sold to us that will so we can overlook them.
well, and so here's my thoughts. Okay. Currently, AI takes insane amounts of computing power. What happens? And um NVIDIA just came out with their AI personal supercomputer that they just allowed everybody. So what happens when you can like you don't what happens when you can train your own chat GPT and you have control over all of your data? Then does this make sense?
Yes. No, sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the idea of it. That's where I'm having the not necessarily I get the idea, but it's like wrapping
Right.
my head around of having this readily available is my
Mhm.
issue.
But that's what a personal AI assistant would help you accomplish. Ideally, you will get your own AI assistant at some point in time. And then ideally, at some point in time, you will be able to train your own.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, there are currently companies that are working on you being able to fine tune your own large language model. This is,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not science fiction. It's there. So what happens
Oh no.
when you can get the source code and train it by yourself at home?
No, I know what's it called. This is maybe slightly off. Not good. It's related, but like I know a lot of EMRs. Those are like the system that hospitals and doctor offices uses. They're coding them now, so when you call, you'll just talk you'll talk to an AI, give them all their information, and then the AI will literally take that information and then create an appointment for you in the system without you needing to like call the office, talk to a receptionist, do like go through like the classic steps that you had to do to get an appointment. You literally will call,
Mhm,
go through the prompt,
mhm,
and they'll ask you basically all the standard question that an assistant or a person would have asked you to do in the past, and then the appointment would have been created, would have been sent to the doctor. Now doctors are not even using assistant because it'll be you, the doctor, and a computer in the room, and the doctor will start saying jargons, and then but it's signaling to the computer to what kind of medical condition it is in medical terms, because in terms of billing, that's what needs to be done, and they're not going, say the layman's term to you, things of that
right.
nature.
Mhm. It's
So my question is, society, where's that going?
That is a very, very, very good question. The human aspect of society, where is that going? Again, I mean, we posed that question right at the beginning. Where does serendipity play a role in people's lives anymore? Are we strictly to become, and maybe it will have the opposite effect. It could. It very well could. It very well could have the opposite effect to where we lean more into what makes us human ultimately. But I don't, number one, I don't think we get there soon enough to be able to make this specific aspect of it make sense. I think that, again, I think it's really, really helpful, and I think it's really, really useful to have these sorts of things. Even if it's just like an AI makes suggestions based off of your thing that's been trained off of you, and that is kind of going, it's be like, hey, I think this might be in your best interest to do something like this, but here are the other options that you could see. And maybe doesn't share those results with you. That could be a thing. But this idea of constantly being obsessed with the
Yeah.
results and the outcome, I don't think is what's going to help. I don't, I
I
think
think
that that
that's
just
where
creates. Mhm. Go for it.
I
Sorry.
was gonna say that's where I'm having where I think where people it'll be used as guidelines or things almost instruction to be like, if I do this, then this is going to happen. Then I'm going to get this. Then I'm going to get this out of it. Then I'm going to get this out of it. But again, going, the nice thing about life is trying things, and not everything's going to work out, but that's the beauty of it. Why? And I don't think so. I don't think that the technology itself is supposed to limit people, but I think the way it will be implemented just based on human nature, it will become a limiting factor. Because the technology can exist and you can use it of is that it's just going to be, I was told this, since it's based off of my personality and what my likes and my needs, then I'm going to, therefore, I need to follow it if I want to get these results that I want. Where it doesn't necessarily guaranteed because because it's saying you're gonna get these things, it doesn't guaranteed. It's not a guaranteed thing that those results are gonna come true because there is a level of yourself that needs to go into it that will impact that as well. And plus life itself is not a linear thing. It is up and down, sideways, in all the shapes that it can be where I think some
Mhm.
because well, I know that predictive models do take that into account, but I don't know how much of actual life it's taking into account.
Yes, I agree. And it brought up so many questions. Well, maybe not questions, but even just potential ideas. What could happen if this led us to more humanity and actually helped us to be able to develop that more limitless mindset that we're looking for, right? Of, oh, well, this is possible and this is possible. And I could go ahead and do this just because it presents more and more options. Again, getting away from the results of things and getting into more of purpose, possibility, hope. Again, these can be used in such a way that it drives us to be able to accomplish amazing feats. I think the biggest concern, and this is just me, the biggest concern is the data privacy.
Well, I agree
I
with you.
don't think any one person should ever have access to another person's data on that level because
Yeah,
you're trusting anybody with that level of data is not good. It's bad. However, short of your doctor or whatever, you can share that with them if you so choose. But again, that needs to be an if you so choose sort of thing. You need to be in control of all of those so
Correct.
that you know exactly how it is being used. And I think that that's why this is an important conversation, at least to have now, because AI is going to continue to permeate our lives. It is going to continue to change the way that we live. And this is just one way that it is going to interact with your consciousness. This is going to become a digital tool for you to be able to
Yep.
use to make informed decisions about how to live your life, mental wellness, and all sorts of things. And so when it comes to those more, when we talk about actionable insights, like, I mean, we've been talking for 40 minutes and all we've done so far is got really, really scared and talked about a lot of the issues and then come to a point where we're like, well, maybe. Maybe if the conditions are perfect, this would be really, really cool tool. This would be something that could change people's lives in ways that we've never even thought possible. It could also derail the entire human race and be the end of it. Who knows? It could be either or. I think what it ultimately boils down to is, again, how we use the tool. And so keeping in mind that every single digital tool that you use from this point on, whatever that may be, whether that be a meditation app, whether that be um, our app, whether it be anything, is going to be on your response. I say your, but our responsibility, because I have to be responsible about it too, of making conscious decisions that are going to be within my best interest. It's not just, oh, okay, here's all of my user data. Go do whatever the fuck you want with it. It is, okay, let me make sure that I'm choosing one that is working out well and that is based on the principles that I want to incorporate. And so, yes, this does require me to maybe go a little bit further. This does require me to maybe get educated a little bit more. This requires me to do a little bit more research than what I would normally do. And I'm not telling you got to spend hours and days, and that's not what I'm saying. But at least a little bit of shit, dude. Even just asking an AI what terms and conditions are for a specific app and making sure that they're not using your data in any sort of nefarious way can go a long way. And that doesn't take 3, 4 hours. That doesn't take very long. It takes a copy and paste and reading the outcome. Yeah, could it be wrong? Sure. That's a possibility. But I don't think that we can downplay the importance of understanding that we play a very, very large role in how the future will be created in terms of technology. Just because something is easier does not mean that we have to jump on the bandwagon instantaneously and ride it out until the end of time. We can make those informed decisions. We can learn how to use these things, and then we can learn how to make them better. I mean, I will tell you one of the big things that I've been an advocate for recently, because everybody's like, oh, well, jobs are going out the window and this, that, and the other. Well, okay, some, sure, the landscape of jobs are going to change, but one of the biggest opportunities that AI is going to empower people to be able to do is to be able to go and start businesses and start companies and to be able to afford, but it will afford people the opportunity to be able to go out and build sustainable and ethical companies. It is no longer going to be limited to a select few individuals that may or may not have some sort of nefarious activities for making a profit. It, it opens up so many avenues for people to be able to get started in those sorts of spheres. And provided we take that responsibility, provided we understand that it is on us to start determining the future that we want, we can have severe impacts in how this technology is developed and how it is adopted. The program I came from out of Maryland, like that's almost their entire focus is just building technologies for people with disabilities. That wouldn't have even existed 30, 40 years ago. So
Hmm.
the fact, and it's not a small program. It's not a small lab. It's not like you're talking about one chief researcher and then some PhD students. You are talking about multiple people across. I mean, that's a big deal. So I think that those things are gaining traction, and I'm gonna remain hopeful because that's what I keep talking about and everything else, and it's part of the purpose that I have when showing up every week and talking to you about these things is providing some sort of that education so that we can be able to make informed decisions about how these things are happening, because mental health is incredibly important, and how we choose to set up that treatment going forward is even more important than the mental health itself, because it can either have severe detriments or it can have really amazing opportunities. And so maybe, just maybe, it's about making a digital twin of this exact scenario. What does it look like when we hook people up to something like this and we begin taking measurements? There's a solid use case for this kind of technology. Fucking meta aspect that shit up. When I was walking last week, I had this one simple idea. Who observes the observer? This is going to get real crazy and real wild, but you do. You observe the observer. Every single time that you have a thought and you observe it, you have just observed the observer. And this continues ad infinitum, on, and recursively just goes on forever. It makes no difference. So there is always an observer of the observer. So how do we take that principle and then go ahead and make those those informed choices? And that's why I say this idea of creating a digital twin to go out and see how providing digital twins, and then maybe we could figure out exactly how to incorporate that to where it minimizes the impact. And that would be something I think would be really interesting. In its current moment, anybody signing up for something like this, I would be very wary. That's just my 2 cents. But I like how we got from this is the worst idea in the world to like, well, maybe this has some sort of validity. It's a very interesting conversation.
Well, y- absolutely. Yeah, it was a very interesting conversation because it is, because from the top we talked about what the idea of digital twin, and you and I, well, I more so, we both originally were like, not so great idea. And then throughout this conversation, well, obviously we discussed the pitfalls of it because, that it is a big, I don't want to say scary idea, but it is a novel idea. With any novel idea, it is, there's a lot of things you want to think about in order, because you want to make sure that it is benefiting society and it's not going to do as harm, yet you can negate all the harm, because nothing in this world is 100% safe. You just literally getting up and walking across a room, you can literally break every bone in your body. It's literally, nothing is 100% safe. And then we just,
Highly
and then
unlikely, but
highly unlikely, but not
right,
improbable.
right.
Well, we did, and then we discussed how about the benefits of it, and we talked about how, and per if we created a perfect world that it might be able to work, and then we got to kind of this place where it might be useful in certain specific situations, and we then to kind of close it off, we discuss how it's not there yet. So if anybody's bringing this up to you, be careful. Watch your site. Make sure you're reading the terms and condition, and make sure you know what you're signing up for. And if you have any apprehension, just listen to your gut. And then hopefully the technology is going to grow and it's going to come in an ethical way. AJ is more hopeful than I am. I am still a little eye closed about it, but I'm willing to be wrong and to be proven wrong.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Carlos and I greatly appreciate it. Comment something that resonated with you today. We are here for support, feedback, or anything else that you want to share. Join us on the Kindred app, a perfect space to keep unpacking what came up during the episode. Get live, peer-to-peer support from people with shared experiences. Kindred is built for those moments that no one else sees.
Take this one step deeper by reviewing today's reflection prompt in the show notes. Please don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and tune in next week for a new episode. Until next time, choose joy.